Hello, I'm Sophia Nora and I'm the creator of the Rebels Mandala. Well, I'm not the only creator because it was evident from the beginning that this was a collective piece of work. I've been used to tuning into other people in consciousness when coaching or when writing magical stories, and it was sort of the same technique that I used for this. Only I picked the vibration and the sensation from the magical realm and turned it into ink on paper. And that, all in all, became a coloring book. And I'm going to show you some of the images and how they came about and how the process unfolded as I worked throughout the months. I had myself and 4 guinea pigs, and as the work unfolded, it sort of had similarities to some of the work that we were doing in the consciousness creation group and the infinite being booster club, and the building of the new collective as we were working on sort of weaved into this work too. So it was quite an interesting and uplifting and fun process. So I'm going to show you a bit about that. I didn't know much about the project when I started out, only that I was to source something via the magical and infinite realms of some amazing beings. It was related to the process of making visual some of the consciousness work that we'd been working on for a long time, but other than that, I didn't really know. I asked out for help, and 4 volunteers showed up for that. Some of the drawings were made specifically for um, the guinea pig in question, but as the work unfolded, I also found that some themes kept popping up. So all in all, I ended up having 20 different drawings reflecting the new infinitas, but some of them based on the individuals from the beginning. The nature of the book changed during the becoming of it, and that's reflected in the covers as well. The first cover was for Star as an individual, but throughout the work that we've been doing on the I Am Presence kept popping up. So I sort of weaved it into the whole, and it ended up on the cover. Also, initially, the coloring book was horizontal, but somehow that didn't work out when I added other players to it. So I ended up changing it. This is a fun way of expressing the unique and the collective at the same time. These squiggles represent a technique where you just let your hand be guided by whatever impulse strikes it at the time. And they always turn up differently. But when you look at them, you find a pair of wings, or a dragon, or a tiger, or flower, or princess, something to reflect an invisible layer of you. The spicy you also turned up as a theme, beginning with Star and Leona, and just unfolding as we all have the spicy side of us, and we all have the sweet and the strong, and having that reflected through the spices of nature just made a curious and fun portal into our invisible realms. At least that's one way of seeing it. The secret garden is another theme that turned up. And we all have that special place we go to, we dream about, we meditate in. And I think the purpose of having it here is to unfold it a bit more and bring it more present in this reality, so our dream spot becomes our new reality in a way. Instead of having it as a go-to place in times of distress or when we need solitude, then have it as a new normal, so its vibrancy will affect our everyday life all the time. The puzzle is another universal symbol with many layers of interpretation and many ways to be expressed. Urban Bourbon is a fun one. It has two versions in the classic edition, a personal one and a general one. And there's a reason for that. It represents the paradox of us being nature and yet often living in cities with noise and too many people and stress and all that. So I wanted to ignite our conscious awareness into living in the city by adding our names into the context. And that way you add yourself consciously into your living environment. How does that play out? And what effects does it have? The eye is a universal symbol as well. It's a very powerful one, and it has so many layers and references. We have been working with this in our consciousness creation group a lot lately. It represents the shift in perception of ourselves when we fully realize that we are not only an infinite being, we are source, actually. And the way it's represented is the iris being the black hole, and black hole being the symbol of of source. And we stand on the edge of the black hole, on the event horizon, and we look at the effects, we look at the possibilities, we are affected by what's happening, and we embed that in our lives. And eventually we want to jump into the black hole, we want to jump into source, we want to become source. And how does that realization affect my life from now on? Oh, I love fairies, and I have this feeling that fairies are taking over the world. They have this amazing ability to sparkle up things and move in and out of reality and just make our lives more exquisite than they were before. And through this process, I was working with different ways of expressing fairies. And eventually I ended up doing two for Esther because we were working in two different contexts on the fairy theme. So that's why they ended up like this. Yeah, this was an obvious choice as I was working with Star as my first guinea pig. And we have come to accept the fact that we are originally made of stardust. And how does knowing that affect our lives from now on? So that was a bit about how the themes of the Rebels Mandala came into play. Now I want to show you some of the individual drawings that came forth as I was working. These two were made for Esther. One's called Creation and the other one's called Morphing. And this one's called The Gift, and it has a number of layers and ways of interpretation. It's a gift you can give or receive, unwrap yourself, and it's also an Easter egg with every interpretation of that word. And I like it because it's so simple and yet it holds so many possibilities within. Music is a universal language too, and it would have been obvious to put it as a theme in the book, but for some reason it didn't. However, for both Esther and Leona, it turned up. But what's interesting and what's representing the new collective is that none of the notes are on the strings. None of the notes are fitted in a fixed place. They are everywhere and anywhere. And that sort of represents that how we do make up new matrices, we do make new systems, but they are not guided by the fixed positioning of the structure. They are morphable because what's guiding them is our source in consciousness all the time. So they are morphable and they are changing all the time in a way. Here are two made for Karen. And through many of her drawings, the little round ones came up, and um, I'm not sure what they represent to her, but here I like how you can see it as stepping stones or soap bubbles, or It even looks like there's a necklace unfolding within the path. That's kind of funny. And this is how they ended up. Two versions. One with a spiral binding, because I like to have full access to the paper when I'm coloring. But when you're doing print on demand, you can't have that. The other one is from Amazon, and it works quite well actually. And here you can see how each drawing has a piece of text attached to it. It's like a prompt or an inspiration to ignite that level of you before coloring. And this is the Urban Bourbon Classic. And the Floral Inferno, where you, oh my, you have to choose. Yeah. And you're a star. And basically, that's it. So, that was it. I hope you enjoyed the walkthrough. And for now, I hope that the Rebels Mandala will get out there and do its work. It's doing its work in consciousness, as now we have created these connections between all of us. But also while coloring and while sharing, we will build that collective even more tangible, even though we don't meet up in person or get to know each other face to face. We will still be connecting and co-sourcing at the level of the new collective us. So it's going to be fun to watch how that unfolds. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you some other time. Bye.